address by our chief guest, Shri Piyush Goyal, Honorable Minister, Ministry of Commerce and Industry and Railways. Shri Piyush Goyal is the Minister of Railways and Minister of Commerce and Industry for the Government of India. He is a member of the upper house of the Parliament of India Rajya Sabha and the Deputy Leader of the Rajya Sabha. He was earlier the Minister of Railways and Coal. He has also held additional charge of Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs twice in 2018 and 19. Earlier, he was Minister of State for Power, Coal, New and Renewable Energy and Mines. Shri Goyal's tenure has seen Indian Railways achieve its best ever safety record in 2018 and 19. This was achieved through holistic measures such as elimination of unmanned level crossings from the broad gauge network, production of safer coaches, etc. Additionally, Shri Goyal oversaw the launch of the first indigenous semi-high-speed train, Vande Bharat Express, between Delhi and Varanasi. The Power, Coal, and New and Renewable Energy Ministries led transformational changes in India's power sector, including the fast tracking of electrification of the nearly 18,000 unelectrified villages in some of the remotest and inaccessible parts of the country. The rollout of the most comprehensive power sector reform ever, Uday, the success of the world's largest LED bulb distribution program, Ujala, for energy efficiency. Other achievements include the elimination of coal shortages to improve the energy security of India and successful conduct of transparent e-auctions of coal blocks. He also received the 4th annual Carnot Prize in 2018, recognizing the path-breaking transformations in India's energy sector. During his 35-year-long political career, Shri Goyal has held several important positions at different levels in the world's largest political party, the Bharatiya Janata Party, and is in its national executive. He has been the national treasurer of the party. In the 2019 Indian general elections, he was a member of the manifesto and publicity committees. He also headed the BJP's Information Communication Campaign Committee for the Indian general elections 2014. Shri Goyal has had a brilliant academic record and all India second rank holder, chartered accountant and second rank holder in law in Mumbai University. He was a well-known investment banker and has advised top corporates on management strategy and growth. He also served on the board of India's largest commercial bank, the State Bank of India and Bank of Baroda. He was also nominated by the Government of India to the Task Force for Interlinking of Rivers in 2002. May I request Shri Goyal to deliver his keynote address.
Thank you very much, Mr. V.S. Parthasarthi, President of the Bombay Chamber of Commerce, Dr. Swati Piramal, Mr. Sudhir Kapadia, Mr. Sandeep Khosla, several other friends that I see on the call and many whom I cannot see because of the new way that we're going to work in the post-COVID world. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Ms. Rathod, for your kind introduction. The last 4 months have seen immense change in all our lives. I would much rather have been in my own hometown, my own home city of Mumbai to attend your annual general meeting rather than doing it over the video. But as times change, so do we. As circumstances come before us, we adapt to those circumstances, but we don't give up. And I think that's the resilience that the people of India, that trade, business, commerce, industry across India has demonstrated in the last few months, and the confidence of a nation of 130 crore people that we will overcome this crisis also and work together towards converting this crisis into an opportunity. In fact, we have moved from the lockdown phase largely to unlock 2 now. At the city or state level, containment zones still have certain restrictions. We still don't have the familiar Mumbai locals back on track fully. But there are certain challenges, certain concerns, certain health priorities, which we'll all have to live with for some more time. I was reading this morning's papers where TCS has spoken about 25 by 25, 25% only working in the offices, the rest moving towards work from home, maybe in the next 3 or 4 years, 5 years. So there's been huge suffering due to COVID. There's been a lot of difficulties businesses have faced, the common man has faced. We have all had challenges which we have grappled with in the last few days. But I must say and acknowledge the huge role that all the chambers of commerce, all industry captains, leaders from different sections of society have played in helping the country work together to overcome this pandemic, this global pandemic, something that was most unexpected, something that came very suddenly onto us, and something which has affected all our lives very, very deeply. Of course, our very dear Amitabh Bachchan and his family also have been affected with COVID. But I must say, he's a person who has, for the last 4 months, continuously engaged with the people at large. He has continuously been giving out very good health advisories and messages to the people at large. He has always motivated our fellow countrymen not to fight with the COVID patient, but to fight with the disease. I don't know if any of you have seen that video clipping of his. It's beautiful. It's very, very touching. Where he says that let's not shun the COVID patient. Let's work towards fighting against COVID, the illness, the pandemic, not against somebody who's affected by COVID. And I think by and large, the nation has really responded to the Honorable Prime Minister's appeals from time to time in terms of the lockdown first, in terms of precautions like social distancing, wearing of masks whenever we are in public, ensuring safety, hygiene, high qualities of cleanliness. And to my mind, despite supporting 17% of the world population, we have been able to in good measure respond in a very, very organized and mature manner to this grave health crisis. In fact, the recovery level in India has now crossed 62%. In terms of number of deaths when compared to the whole world, we are still at very, very reasonable levels. Our immunity levels as a nation are demonstrated to be far better, more resilient than many other, even more advanced and developed economies. And using the lockdown phase of about 10 weeks or so, this country has truly demonstrated, and I must acknowledge and thank all of India's industry for coming forward proactively to make India self-sufficient in a variety of ways, to make India ready to fight this pandemic. In fact, I remember when the lockdown was announced, we had barely 4 centers where COVID testing could happen. You could probably do 2,500 in a single day. Today, COVID testing is happening at more than 1,000 centers all over the country, authorized centers. And our testing has ramped up 100 times. We have a capacity now to do 300,000. I remember when the lockdown was announced, the biggest concern was availability of personal protective equipment, PPEs, masks, and such other equipment like ventilators, adequate supply of oxygen, which could have been required in very large numbers. All of these issues, including the very few ICU beds or COVID isolation centers available with the country, were challenges which had prompted several international observers and pundits to suggest that India would be one of the worst affected countries. I think we have used this time to start producing PPEs in India. We are not only self-sufficient, we started exporting PPEs now. We have enough and more mask making in India. We have sufficient isolation wards for COVID care. We have sufficient ICU wards, beds available across the country. Railways in their own small way have also contributed to ensuring that in the remotest corners, should we need isolation beds or COVID beds, the railways can provide that facility. And I think all in all, as the country prepared itself to fight this pandemic, so did we also start unlocking the nation. And save and except again the containment zones, I think there's more and more realization that we'll have to get back to normal. Maintaining all the strict health protocols or advisories that the center or the state government has been issuing from time to time, I think it's time we all took some bold initiatives and got back the wheels of the economy and get our growth back on track. In fact, if you see any statistic in Unlock 2, the country is fast moving towards the previous year levels in terms of electricity consumption, in terms of the freight moved in the railways. I mean, last month, June, the railways loading of freight was at 93% level of June 2019. Electricity, I'm told, is upwards of 90% levels, which have been restored in the economy. I was checking with the cement industry yesterday. I believe the cement industry also is back to the pre-COVID level of about 65%, which is usually the level at which it works in a pre-monsoon period. Different indicators suggest exports. The June export number was at about 88% of June 19 level. So it very clearly is demonstrating that we are moving very rapidly towards a reasonable level of operation. We'll of course have certain sectors like tourism, like hospitality, aviation, also passenger travel on railways and public transport, which will remain a challenge for some more time. But I'm sure as we work collectively towards bringing in normalcy and towards preparing or finding a cure and a vaccine for this disease, we will all get more and more to normal way of working. Of course, nobody can deny that it's almost going to be a new world that we will all be stepping into. Just like we had BC and AC, I read somebody had coined this term that the before COVID and after COVID world are going to be significantly different. And be it the chambers of commerce, be it industry, manufacturing, services, be it government, I think we are all preparing ourselves for the post-COVID world. But I tell you, huge good can come out of it if we learn our lessons well. One good is my own efficiency I found is 3 times better than what it ever was before. And if the previous VC allows you to exit on time and a couple of speakers don't add on just 2 more questions or 1 more question, then I'm actually finding I can be in reasonable time for my engagements rather than the earlier days when people would fly down from all over the country for one meeting in Delhi. In the middle of almost preparing for that meeting, something more urgent would come up and you would have tons of people waiting for you to show up. You would have meetings stretching long because there's a lot of social courtesies. Now I buy my own water, I buy my own cup of tea. You don't have to even dedicate budgets for all of that. Less social conversations, not always good, but more business, more action, more outcome, more output, and effective implementation. That's going to be the mantra in the next few months and years. And to bring the economy back on track for fast-paced growth in a sustained manner, the Honorable Prime Minister has very rightly given us a 5I mantra: intent, inclusion, investment, infrastructure, and innovation. I think there can be no better description of what we all need to do, not only to bring the economy back on track, but to actually take the country back to its goal of a $5 trillion economy. We may have lost some time, but we've not lost the spirit, the enthusiasm. And I believe the only way out of this crisis is going to be growth, it's going to be rapid growth, it's going to be a collective effort. But that effort not only should be our good intent, but should also care for the less privileged sections of society. That's the inclusion that the Prime Minister talks about, the MSMEs, small entrepreneurs, small shopkeepers. It'll also have to have a lot of engagement in terms of private capital, supplementing government's own efforts on investment and infrastructure. We'll have to look at engaging with the rest of the world to get capital and to open up our market and open their markets for our products. When we talk of investment, when we talk of infrastructure, we are not looking at only what we can do within the country. We are looking at greater global engagement. Now, after all, Atmanirbhar Bharat is not about closing India's doors. It's about opening India's doors. It's about greater global engagement, a larger role for our Indian entrepreneurs, businesses, and our youngsters and our stakeholders to become part of resilient global supply chains. It's about improving our quality of production, achieving higher economies of scale, greater production capacities, so that we not only meet India's needs, but we also meet global demand, but at competitive prices and with quality products. And therefore, the last I, innovation, becomes important. After all, if you see the developed world, most developed countries have succeeded on the back of new technology, engagement with newer ways of doing work, innovating not only products and services, but also their own processes. And that's what I think chambers such as yours and government can do in partnership, work together to give a significant boost to the nation's collective effort to bring back growth, to bring back jobs, to bring back a self-resilient and confident country, engaging with the rest of the world from a position of strength, not weakness. but in fact expanding that engagement, not closing our doors, not restricting our own engagement with the rest of the world. I personally believe the kind of reforms that the Honorable Prime Minister has announced through Atmanirbhar Bharat are very, very well crafted, not only for the short-term relief that is sought to be given in several ways, but for a more sustained long-term future for the Indian economy and for a better future for our children, a better future for the 130 crore Indians in the length and breadth of the country. It'll need a multi-pronged approach towards ease of doing business, towards reducing the cost of doing business. I'm very much seized of the fact that we'll have to look at plug-and-play infrastructure. We'll have to look at making it easier to interact with government online through real simplified processes. Maybe a single window, but which is a genuine single window, not a window which opens to 50 other doors behind it. We'll have to look at making affordable finance available to businesses. We'll have to look at long-term finance being available for infrastructure and manufacturing. As Railway Minister, I'm conscious goods have to move fast. Goods have to move at lower prices. The fast part, we have been working the last 3-4 months of the lockdown to improve our freight speeds. And I'm happy to share with you, I monitor it on a daily basis. But yesterday, for example, I'll quote exact numbers so I don't make any mistake. Yesterday, the Indian Railways on July 12th data I'm giving you, the speed of our freight trains was 95% more than it was on 12th July 2019. So our average freight train speed 1 year ago on the same day yesterday was 23.38 kilometers per hour. Yesterday it was 45.54 kilometers per hour. We are actually reaching goods in half the time it used to take in the pre-COVID days. While I appreciate we've been able to do this largely because a lot of the passenger trains are not working. But going forward, we are trying to institutionalize this so that we don't slip up again, even as we reinstate the passenger traffic. And freight continues to get that preeminent position so that goods can move faster, provide more paths so that our services to our passengers can be better, and we can move much greater degree of freight to bring down the cost of railway freight. Similarly, yesterday we loaded 92% of what we had loaded 1 year ago on the same day. I'm only trying to share with you that all of us in our own small way are trying to see how we can improve using this crisis, using this problem, converting it into an opportunity and preparing ourselves to support industry, to support businesses, to become more cost competitive, to expand in terms of size and scale and reach, and truly become global in nature. In fact, massive cut in corporate taxes, significant amendments in company law to decriminalize a number of the aspects of the administration of company law, concerted actions taken to address domestic constraints, maybe in the form of adequate liquidity being available, bringing down cost of credit to more affordable levels, trade facilitation through digitalization, greater degree of transparency in all our actions of the government, trying to address GST issues, particularly the inverted duty issue on import duties and GST, capacity building through skilling, better logistics, as I just mentioned. All of these are issues that we have been grappling with for several years now. while a lot of effort was made in earlier years, our own ease of doing business indices have improved significantly. And our rank is currently at around 62 or 63 against 140 to 62, I think, against 142 several years ago. Now, all of these are steps that the government has consistently been taking. We want to be a preferred trading partner in the global economy. We want to work more and more with transparent, rule-based and like-minded countries to promote international trade, for which we are pursuing greater degree of engagement with several countries and several geographies. We are keen that our industries become a key part of resilient global value chains, and I can assure you the government's full support in all the good work that all of you are doing. Bombay Chamber at one point of time was famous for stopping international engagement. I'm not trying to remind you of those days, but I think now in the new world, the Bombay Chamber has a much greater responsibility to strengthen domestic industry, to make us really vibrant, to help us achieve scale and competitiveness so that we can engage with the world from a position of strength and competitiveness, not dependent on the clutches of government, but standing on our own feet as a confident business, as a confident sector, which can provide to the rest of the world. We also appreciate that every country cannot be competitive in everything. And we will need to import certain products where we may have certain difficulties. But the effort should be to move more and more towards self-reliance. COVID has taught us a big lesson. Over-dependence can cause you a lot of difficulties in the time of stress. And God forbid, there's any other similar challenge before the rest of the world. I think next time around, India will be far, far better prepared, far, far more confident to face any such crisis. In our own way, we have been identifying sectors where import substitution or export potential is there in big measure. And I'm sure we can all work together to make this happen. 12 priority sectors that we have identified and worked very actively so far are food processing, organic farming, iron and steel, aluminium and copper, agrochemicals, electronics, industrial machinery, furniture, leather and footwear, auto parts, textiles, and several other such initiatives. Marine products, for example, huge potential in marine products. Now we are looking at more sectors, and I would urge all of you also to look at what new sectors we can look to really promote Indian manufacturing, just like we have done for electronics, for medical devices, or for API and KSMs. I would urge the chamber also to help us in our designing of ease of doing business, the single window framework that we are trying to create, and come up with robust mechanisms which are transparent, simple to operate, yet don't leave scope for misuse. I was in an earlier session with a particular industry who was asking for certain concessions. But then when I pointed to them out what those concessions could lead to in terms of leakages in the system, in terms of the truant businessman or business person misusing the system, we could all realize that how important it is to have simplicity yet robust self-regulation. And we have Sudhir Bhai over here, who's himself a tax expert. We have industry leaders. Partha, your colleague, Pawan Goenka, has been really supporting us in our work for Atmanirbhar Bharat and identifying and working with these sectors. So I'm sure we can trust the Bombay Chamber to play a very, very important role, because the prosperity of the nation is a shared responsibility of all of us. It cannot be left only to the government In fact, sectors where you have kept government out of your hair have largely been more successful than sectors where government has interfered. And industry is a living example of that. So let us see how we can reduce officialdom. Let us see how we can get government out of your businesses, yet ensure that we have an orderly way of working. We expect everybody to contribute to this effort that the Honorable Prime Minister has laid before this nation. The Atmanirbhar Bharat is a strong India, is a resilient India, is a confident India in which trade bodies have a very important role to play as partners in India's growth story. Let us work together. Let us work together in the spirit of oneness and togetherness. My best wishes to the new team. My best wishes for the year ahead of you. This is your 184th annual general meeting. Truly a remarkable milestone. One of the oldest chambers, but I know for sure age has only made you wiser. Age has only brought more sheen to your glamour. And I have no doubt that going forward, Bombay Chamber will continue to serve industry, business, yet also keep the last man at the bottom of the pyramid in our focus as being the person for whom we all exist. My best wishes to you, Partha, and your team. My best wishes to all the participants in this annual general meeting. May you all stay safe. May you all get well soon. Stay healthy. And I want to add a small word. My best wishes that Mr. Amitabh Bachchan and his family, who are all our dear Mumbaikars, somebody we look up to as icons, somebody who have played a very proactive role in the last 4 months during COVID to keep the morale of the nation high. I don't know if you've seen that small clipping of his where he's talking, let's fight the disease, not the patient. And I think he really has been a model inspiration for all of us. We all pray for his early recovery, good health. We hope he gets well soon, goes back home and continues to serve, along with his family, continues to serve the nation. My best wishes to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hello?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. May I request Ms. Anjali Bansal, Senior Vice President, Bombay Chamber, to moderate the question and answer section.
Thanks so much for joining
Sorry,
us.
just one second.
No,
Yeah, go.
I wouldn't have. I think what you have planned is much beyond the time that the office had allocated. But if there are one or two quick ones that you have, I've otherwise been reading the chat box and trying to respond in my conversation.
Sure.
But I
So
can't
permit us a couple of quick
specific
questions.
queries like, are we going to increase import duty on a product or no, and stuff like that. That's not possible for me to respond.
And we wouldn't request you to respond to such specific things. So first of all, thank you so much for joining us today and taking the time. We are encouraged and energized by your very positive address. Also the message of innovation, resilience, and Atmanirbhar, which means not inward looking, but actually resilient and strong to be far more global. So two questions, and I will give both questions together. So then we can make better use of your time. One is actually around ease of doing business. So we have made great strides with a lot of support from leaders like you in actually getting better, particularly in the innovation sectors, on ease of doing business. How can we actually continue to make that progress now as it comes to manufacturing and make in India, which will really have a big impact also on our employment generation, livelihood footprint. So that's one question around ease of doing business. The second is around Atmanirbhar Bharat. We've heard, and many of us have been part of conversations again around improving our technology footprint and capability, which will lead to better manufacturing again, but also bringing in very significant global players to enhance our presence in the global supply chains. So two pieces: ease of doing business. How do we use innovation, technology, digitization to actually improve on that? And second, Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Both are extremely relevant, Ms. Bansal, and undoubtedly, we cannot rest on the laurels of being ranked 62 on the ease of doing business, but we have a long way to go to be amongst the top 25, as the Honorable Prime Minister would like us to be. Incidentally, the top 40 countries in EODB all have a per capita income above $30,000. And we are fighting against that kind of prosperous economies when we are trying to wedge our way in, but we are committed to doing. And we've just had a round of discussions with the World Bank officials. You'll also appreciate that ease of doing business is a comparative ranking, like a percentile. So while we'll improve, the other countries are also continuously improving. So you have to keep pace with their further improvement. But I assure you, the government is seized of it at every level. As recently as 3 days back, we had a very high-level group of ministers working on arbitration. What we can do to make enforcement of contracts better. How can we promote India as an international arbitration center and maybe give Singapore and London a run for their money? Make it faster to resolve disputes in India. That's one of the areas where we are very lowly ranked in the ease of doing business. Similarly, as I said, I need your help. What can we do to make a true single window? But Sudhir Bhai will have to help me to make sure that the leakages are not allowed in that single window. Because unfortunately, you all know, and I also know, the moment you leave something, I'm also a chartered accountant, so I can take a punt on chartered accountants. We have 10 smart super alec chartered accountants telling you how you can break the law. You may bring in car, you may do anything, but we'll have enough and more advisors to tell us that, yeah, but the letter of the law says like this. Just stick to that and you're okay. And I'm struggling with e-commerce companies who may be fitting into the letter of the law, but very often are breaking every spirit of the law in their operations. And I'm at pains trying to get them to understand that, look, law is not just that you can't, do X. Please understand the meaning why you can't do X. So I think it's something where you will, as stakeholders, have to help us, but we stand committed. We would love to leave everything for self-regulation. We would love to allow you to regulate yourselves, like so many bodies. There are many industry bodies. Some are doing a damn good job. And there I can say the Chartered Accountants Institute is doing a very good job. Reasonably, it's a role model institute. But we have other professional bodies who do a very bad job. And then government has to interfere into that. I won't take any specific names here. So what I'm only trying to say is that we would love to do more and more self-regulation. But the sad part is we don't come up to the expectations of the nation. And then you have 10 cases which break the law. And then regulators get super active, bring in 10 new regulations to stop that leakage or stop that misuse, and we'll end up killing ease of doing business. So I think it'll have to be a collective effort. Both of us all of us, industry and government, will have to work together on that. Undoubtedly, to engage with the rest of the world, to truly make India Atmanirbhar, we will have to engage with the rest of the world. We'll need better technologies. We'll need more productivity. I have National Productivity Council under me. Why don't all of you take the cudgels? Help me improve that. I have the Footwear Design Institute. Footwear has a potential to be at least a 5 lakh crore industry in India. 5 lakh crore minimum. It can provide jobs to maybe 30, 40 lakh, 50 lakh people. Maybe a crore of people, I don't know. But governments can't do it best. But if you join hands with us, yesterday I called up Noel Tata, our own Mumbaikar again. He's, I think, heading the Footwear Institute. He was so happy. He said, I'd love to do it if you're willing to give me a free hand. And he's promised to really get the cudgels of Footwear Design and Development Institute and take it to the next level. You pick up some of these ideas, pick up some of the sectors. Why doesn't Bombay Chamber come up with 4 sectors and tell us, okay, these 4 we'll flesh it to the minutest detail and we'll become world dominant in these 4 sectors. Then talk to the government what we can do to help you. So let's work as partners, as I said. Let's bring the best from the world to India. We are not against imports. We want India to be also self-reliant, but also bring in the best. We want the best of AI to come in, best of robotics to come in, data analytics to come in. Why can't our startup ecosystem be Indian-owned also? Why does every unicorn have to sell out? Where are all our industry captains when it comes to investing in our Indian startups? Can Bombay Chamber get all the Piramals of the world and, sorry, Bhabhi, please don't mind, to put in a pool of capital and support our Indian startups? So let's all work together in that spirit of oneness. I have the confidence that we can be a world dominant power, given the strength of our youngsters. All our young boys and girls, they are charged. They have all the ability in the world. We can do better than NASA can do. Look at our very own ISRO. Look at the achievements in space technology. Now we've opened it for the rest of the world. I was seeing Mr. Sivam's interview the other day on TV. It literally brings tears to your eyes. The great work ISRO has done. We can do that in every sector. We have to decide, the captains of India and Indian industry. You make up your mind. We are standing right with you, shoulder to shoulder. You take, as the Honorable Prime Minister says, you take 2 steps. He promises to take 4 steps. But we'll make sure India meets the aspirations of 130 crore Indians. We can beat anybody in the world once you all make up your mind and we all work as one, as partners. Thank you.
Thank you so much for indulging us with a couple of questions, and even more energized now to hear about technology and the power of youth. And as someone who actually was a young engineer trainee at ISRO, I'm so proud that you mentioned ISRO here as a global standard. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for your work, and thank you, everybody. It was really a pleasure meeting all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So much.
Thank you, sir.